we're going to start a little refresher on fractions. So a fraction, just a reminder, looks something like this, and it consists of two numbers where this is called the numerator and the bottom number is called the denominator. Now remember that the rule is the denominator may never be zero. All right, so that language is going to be important because we're going to refer to it a few times. So the first rule that we're going to refresh is what do we do when we're adding or subtracting? And the first thing that you're going to do is remember that there must be a common denominator. Usually we want to try to come up with the lowest denominator we can think of, but honestly, if you're feeling a little bit stuck, any denominator will do. And in some cases, using a bigger number might actually work out. So let's do an example. We have 3 over 7 plus 2 over 7. You see that the denominator is the same. Actually, I'll do the equals on here. And so we could add the 3 and the 2, and the denominator stays the same. This is also true for 3 over 7 minus 2 over 7. And so denominator stays the same. So we have 1 over 7. All right, so that's a very simple introduction to fractions. Now, another example, or it gets a little bit trickier, when we have, let's say, 7 over 14 minus, let's do 1 over 4. So in a case like this, what do you do? Well, we come up with a common denominator, which means we're going to make it, for the sake of simplicity here, we can make it out of, generally we could do 4 times 14. So we can make the denominator that, which is going to be 56. All right, so that's going to be the denominator that we are going to use in this case, simply because we're just going to multiply it. There's actually another number that can fit in there, but we'll use this for the sake of simplicity. So if you're ever not sure, just multiply both denominators. But you have to remember that the 7 over 14, if we add like a little section here, so 7 over 14, in order to make it 56, I'm going to have to multiply the bottom by 4, which means I also have to multiply the top by 4. So usually I would like to just write it on the side here, just to make sure that I don't make a mistake there. And then the other one, 1 over 4, I'm going to have to multiply the bottom by 14 and the top by 14 to make it 56. So I'm going to have 14 over 56. So now I could plug those numbers back in. 7 over 14 becomes 28 out of 56 minus 14 out of 56. And then now I could subtract, which makes it 14 out of 56. And if I were to simplify it, then it would simply become 1/4. And these two would be my answers. The second one being the one that is in the simplest form. So now let's try out an example where you would have to use fractions, or integers in it. So let's do 7 over 21, and we are going to subtract 3 over 7. So how do we go about this question? First of all, I'll need to figure out what the common denominator is. And in this case, I'll make the common denominator out of 21 because I know that I just have to change that second number. So I'm doing a little bit of a shortcut here. So then I'll have to change the 3 out of 7 and make it out of 21, which means I'll need to multiply both the top and the bottom by 3, right? Okay, so then I'll have 9 over 21. Now I leave the 7 over 21 minus 9 over 21. And now what I would do is, in the spirit and tradition of integers, is I would change this to a plus, and because the second number is a positive, I'll change it to a negative, like that. Then from there, I could do my battle of addition style where I have a 9 and a 7. I could ignore the denominator for now because they're the same. So if I do -9 plus 7, then I'm going to get -2 because the negative team wins. The 9's bigger. The 9 fights against the 7. 2's left over. And I would have the 21. Then I would leave the integer there. Now, just for the sake of clarity, you may put the integer or the negative sign in front. So it becomes like this. All right, so these are still the same number. And I could even do 2 over -21. So wherever that negative goes, it doesn't play too big of a role, or it doesn't impact what your answer is. And sometimes you might want to readjust because of a particular solution you're trying to solve. But really, this is an example of what it would look like if it was done in integers. So now we're going to refresh our memories with multiplying. So multiplying is pretty simple. You multiply the top and the bottom. So here's an example. 2 over 7 times 3 over 6. And all you're simply going to do is multiply the top. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. 7 times 6 is going to be 42. And you could simplify that if you want. So then it becomes 1 out of 7. And again, some of you might already go into thinking about what you could do to simplify those numbers, and you'll see that you don't actually even have to do too much calculations there if you simplified in the previous step. Oops, we're not diving, we're dividing. So the final step is dividing, and for the one rule here is flip the second fraction. And this applies anytime you're dividing by a fraction. So even if you're dividing like a whole number by a fraction, you simply flip that second fraction and you multiply. So an example here would be 2 over 6 divided by 3 over 4. So what you would do is you'll keep the 2 over 6, and some of you again might be able to simplify if you wanted to. You're going to multiply instead of divide, and then you are going to flip that second number to make it 4 over 3. And then you could do your basic multiplication. So I have 8 on the top, and on the bottom I have 18. And if I wanted to simplify that, I would get 4 if I divide both by 2 over 9. Also, if you are in the process of simplifying, if you are not sure if they're both even numbers, you could just divide them both by 2, and you could just keep going until you come to a number where you can no longer divide or simplify. So that right there is a brief explanation and refresher of fractions. When you have integers, just use the same rules as the rest of the integers. So for the multiplication and division, especially if it's both the same symbol, then they become positive. If they're different symbols, they become negative.